Early evening. The sun has not yet fully sunk below the horizon. The scene is the sect of the beast, the city of Exian Ming. A meeting is taking place in the main tower. Zen, the day has come when you will create your golden core, said the teacher to the young man. The boy stood looking intently at the teacher, holding the book in his hand. But first I want to remind you of something, the master went on. The rest of the students stood in the hall and watched. Yes, I'm listening to you carefully, Jin said. He is the first disciple of the beast sect. You stand out among the other students. You are very talented and your rate of cultivation is impressive. It may happen that it is you who will create the heavenly core of the beast. Even I, being your teacher, envy you. If you succeed in creating a celestial beast core, you will not only enhance your cultivation, but you will also be able to communicate with imperial beasts. You will probably even reach a depth where you can merge with imperial beasts, gaining a whole new power. I didn't succeed in creating the celestial core of the beast, but I hope you will. I've already prepared everything for it, said Yin Wanting, the beast sect master. He had a small glowing blob of energy in his hand. It was Gug Yuan's spiritual core. The master passed it on to the boy. You have a heavy burden on your shoulders to create the celestial core of the beast and to glorify our sect. I'll do my best not to disappoint you, said the boy. Good for you. You can go. And don't forget, you have to read the text very carefully. Yes, master, answered the young man before he left. In his hands was a celestial beast core and a book. The two students who were standing in the crowd looked at the guy who was heading for the exit. Brother, the manuscript of Yui Huang Juexin that the master just handed over to Xiao Jin, is that the one you wanted? Asked the first one. Well, yes, so what? The second one replied. It was obvious that he was angry. Agent, you jealous? Asked the first guy. I'd be jealous of an orphan, said the second guy sullenly. Silence. Their conversation was interrupted by a shout behind them. The disciples tensed. It was the master. Instead of devoting yourself to cultivation, you spend your time envying your fellow man. You're also throwing mud at him. What kind of way of thinking is that? Said the master angrily. Okay, I have an assignment for you. Let's go. Yes, teacher, the students said at the same time. They were happy that the teacher had found an assignment for them. Lentian is the world in which Exian Meng and all the other immortality sects are located, and the four strongest of them all are the Miyao sect, Tianling Exai, Bai Yua, Meng, and the sect of the beast. In the distant past, an immortal master of all beasts opened a portal that could be used by beasts and humans alike. He came to the beast sect and conquered countless other sects, making the beast sect one of the four strongest sects. Many generations later, the secret of the beast's celestial core technique was revealed, and the status of the beast sect grew legitimately. The night is deep. The sky above the towers is dark and covered with many stars. In one of the rooms in the tower, Xiao Jin is meditating. He is holding a bright blue sphere from which a huge tiger is roaring out. The guy sighs deeply. And Hugh, it looks like you're all excited about creating the celestial core of the beast too, says the young man, gathering all the energy into a small ball on his hand. An ordinary beast's core won't satisfy me, thought the boy looking at the ball he had placed next to him. Oh, teacher, I'll do my best and create a celestial nucleus, thought the boy and went on. He had a small ball in one hand and a big beastly ball in the other. At some point, Xiao Jin began to succeed and the two spheres began to touch each other. A bright blue fire began to blaze around the guy. It was energy and it began to spread around. It was quiet and peaceful outside. Most of the students were already asleep in their rooms. There was a rumbling sound. A bright beam of energy appeared in the clear sky, which rushed into the tower where Xiao Jin was sitting. Everything around him trembled. When it was over, a huge bright blue tiger appeared above the tower. Its mouth was open and its huge fangs were visible. The teacher was sitting in his room drinking tea when the explosion occurred. That's the celestial core of the beast. He really didn't let me down, said the master enthusiastically, clutching the mug in his hand so that it shattered. Then the teacher jumped out the window and headed for his student. At last I can please the master, said Xiao Jin. The smoke began to disperse around him. At that moment, the boy heard footsteps and turned around to the door. He thought it might be the master. The footsteps outside the door were very close. It's the middle of the night. Has he been waiting for me all night? The young man thought. When he went to the door to see who was there was a sudden explosion that threw him several meters away. "Who's that?" shouted the guy. Behind him, from behind the door, stretched a green stream of energy resembling a hand. They were spiritual soul-eating serpents. They began to attack the boy, but he managed to dodge it. He did a backflip and bounced back a few meters. "Who are you people?" Xiao Jin said indignantly. He couldn't figure out who was attacking him. "And how do you know the techniques of the cult of the beast?" There were two warriors standing in front of him. They were hooded, their faces hard to see. Their hands glowed green. One of them had a fiery green snake in his hand. They stood in silence and looked at the young man. Xiao Jin lit up the energy in his hands. They began to glow bright blue. "Are you going to keep quiet?" "Great, just checking out what the celestial core can do," said the boy. The hooded men rushed at him. Xiao Jin unleashed his energy, and the destructive jade tiger, Shan Jin, appeared behind him. It was so strong that the wall of the house they were in was blown to pieces. One of the attackers flew a long distance from such a hard blow. Xiao Jin stood and looked after the flying warrior. At that moment, a second opponent attacked him from behind. He flew at the guy with a cobra kick, but Xiao Jin was not confused. He attacked his attacker without even turning around. The warrior flew to the other side of the room. Xiao Jin went to him to find out who was hiding under the mask. The warrior was lying on the floor and could not move. Xiao Jin leisurely walked over to the man lying there. He had already put his hand to his hood to yank it off, but at that moment he heard someone else behind him. The boy turned around. There stood another fighter in a majestic and proud pose. His hands were clasped behind his back. "Another one. Where do you come from?" Xiao Jin said, but the warrior didn't answer him, just stood there and watched. He then abruptly grabbed his partner and jumped out of the house onto the roof of the neighboring house. Xiao Jin rushed after him with a shout. The chase began. They jumped from rooftop to rooftop, and Xiao Jin could not shorten the distance to his opponent. At some point, Xiao Jin realized that his enemy was moving toward the Huishu rock. When the boy was on the rock, the masked man stood with his back to him. "Show your face!" Xiao Jin demanded. "Not counting you. The last time the celestial core of the beast was created was by the founder of the sect. That was 573 years ago," said the man. "You have great potential. It would be a pity if it went to waste." The mysterious man turned to Xiao Jin. "Given your talent, you will truly accomplish much in 100 years. Who are you?" the guy asked. "Sorry, of course, but the cult can't wait that long," said the hooded man. He waved his hand, forming a blob of bright green energy. Xiao Jin did not expect such a sharp attack. Only at the last moment he managed to release his energy to defend, but his opponent was able to penetrate it. When the energies collided, there was a strong explosion, which blew the guy away for a long distance. As expected of the celestial core of the beast, you were able to withstand the attack of the divine world level, even though you yourself have only reached the golden level. From the crater that emerged from the explosion, a voice was heard. "No, it can't be." Xiao Jin climbed out of the smoke that still hadn't cleared. The man in the hood was a master. The boy recognized his teacher by his fighting style. He stood nonchalantly and looked at Xiao Jin. The young man stood on the other side of the rift and looked at his teacher. Blood came out of the guy's mouth. He lost his strength abruptly and had to drop to one knee to keep from falling. That Ga Yuan core had Qi Zen energy, which turns into poison when it comes into contact with the key of a snake. The mentor stepped closer to Xiao Jin. The young man sat on his knees and could not move. "If you voluntarily give me the celestial core, you will die painlessly," said the teacher. "Have you lost your honor? Keep dreaming." "Through the pain," said the boy. "Too bad." The mentor's fingers began to produce bright green clots of energy that headed toward the young man. They pierced through Xiao Jin. There was nothing he could do because the poison made him very weak. He felt a piercing pain. Using clots of energy, the master began to pull the blue core out of him. The boy was in a lot of pain. At one point, he started screaming, "No, stop it!" But the master didn't stop using his energy tentacles. He pulled the blue orb out of the young man and pulled it to him. The boy sat on the ground without the strength to interfere with his master. When the sphere was almost in the hands of the mentor, a blue, huge magical tiger burst out of it and attacked the wizard. But it only managed to scare the captor a little and break his mask. But despite the protection of the core, The energy of the wizard was stronger. He was more experienced. And in the end, he was able to take possession of the celestial nucleus. He used his energy to hold the core in his hand. Even outside your body, it is so strong. So that's what the celestial nucleus is like. Why? Teacher. Xiao Jin still couldn't muster the energy to interfere with his mentor. The teacher hid the core and turned away from the boy. For the sake of the cult, with contempt, he said. At this time, people's voices were heard nearby. A group of men with torches were heading toward the battle site. Xiao Jin, why did you attack me? Are you determined to kill me, your teacher? Said the master, hiding the celestial core. Master, we heard the sounds of battle and arrived as quickly as we could. People were standing near the teacher and the Abgentus. Among the people were 2 disciples who were jealous of Xiao Jin. One of them was holding the manuscript. We found it in Xiao Jin's house. The master treated him like his own son, and this is how he repaid it. He stole the relic of the sect and then attacked the master. No mercy for that. The foreman looked at the boys nonchalantly. Do you think so? Xiao Jin, will you admit your mistakes? Said the teacher. One of the students who had come running stood beside him. Mistake? Did I make a mistake? The boy rose to his feet with the last of his speech. He could not believe that he had been so cruelly betrayed. Although yes, I made a mistake. I made a mistake when I trusted you. The young man was barely on his feet. People around began to judge Xiao Jin. They were on the side of the teacher. So be it. It's time to get it over with, said the teacher. He approached the boy and gave him several blows filled with energy. The young man could not resist. The rules of the sect state that a wild beast must starve to death. The master said and delivered a devastating blow with magic that sent the young man flying off the cliff. He lost consciousness. His eyes rolled back. Xiao Jin flew down the cliff. Only his subconscious mind continued to function. Yin Winton, my rage will burn forever. My hatred will never fade. In the next life, you will pay for your deed with blood. With these words, the boy fell into darkness. The young man was lying unconscious on the edge of a steep cliff. There was a big red snake nearby. It began to crawl toward him. The snake sensed flesh to eat. She approached the breathless body and clawed her fangs into Xiao Jin's hand. With a bite, she let the snake venom into her hand, which is capable of killing a person in a couple of seconds. The poison spread all over his body. The boy began to glow from the effects of the poison. At that second, a huge eagle appeared. He grabbed the snake with his beak and also grabbed Xiao Jin, who was still unconscious. The snake let out a piercing squeak. The sound spread throughout the gorge. Several snakes appeared from the rock, and they were very large. The snakes attacked the eagle, which looked like a small bird against them. The eagle opened its beak in surprise, and the snake broke free. He also let go of Xiao Jin, and he flew further down the gorge. He continued to plummet toward the foot of the mountain. As he fell, he bounced several times off the ground and landed on the mysterious magical creature's tail. The animal was asleep, curled up in a ball. It looked very majestic, magic oozing from its sides. It opened one eye and looked at the boy. Xiao Jin could only avert his eyes. He saw that the creature had awakened and was pulling its huge paw toward him. Then he fell into a hopeless sleep of powerlessness.